My wife, a manager at the company, still had no idea I had recovered my hearing. She was standing right in front of me, plotting with her newly hired male assistant on how to seize control of my company. "He can't hear us anyway. He's so in love with you, he'll believe anything you say. Let's just trick him into recording a verbal will, signing the shares over to us. Then we can dump him on a deserted island, get rid of the body, and come back to a life of financial freedom, together forever." But I didn't expose them. Instead, I smiled, transferred all my shares to my wife, and willingly went to the island to fake an accidental drowning. After all, no one knew that my company's financial chain had already snapped, leaving it with over $100 million in outstanding payments. Soon my wife and her male assistant would be saddled with that astronomical debt, doomed to a life worse than death. Chapter 1. In the office, my heart trembled as I listened to my wife, Victoria Quinn, cheerfully discussing with her male assistant, Landon Shaw, how to steal my company. After a full year, I had finally regained my hearing. I had originally planned to come to the company to give Victoria a surprise. I never expected she'd have this kind of gift prepared for me. Their conversation was so natural, so completely undisguised. Clearly, this wasn't the first time they'd had a discussion like this. Over the past year, just how many times had Victoria deceived me like this? Before I could say a word, Victoria noticed something was off about me. She gently used sign language to ask, "Darling, what's wrong? You suddenly look so pale." Her expression was so natural, so concerned. If I hadn't heard her words with my own ears, I might have actually been fooled by her act. Looking at the gentle, caring facade of Victoria before me, the old feelings of gratitude and guilt were gone, replaced only by a nauseating wave of disgust. "It's nothing, just an upset stomach from breakfast this morning." Hearing this, Landon Shaw, standing to the side, let out a sigh of relief. "You scared me." He looked like he'd seen a ghost. I thought our plan had been discovered. Victoria, however, simply fiddled with her manicure and sneered. How was that possible? I was the one who personally pierced Sincere's eardrums. There's no way he could ever recover. At that, Landon laughed as well. True. That fool Sincere probably has no idea that in the car crash he was just knocked unconscious and nothing more. He still foolishly believes you risked your life to save him and showed him unwavering devotion. He kept talking about repaying you. It's hilarious. If he ever found out that even your marriage certificate is a fake, he'd probably drop dead from sheer anger. In that moment, my fists, hidden in my sleeves, clenched tight. A year ago, I had just taken my company public. I was on top of the world, ready to conquer the market. Then, a sudden car crash left me unconscious. When I woke up, only Victoria was by my side, but I couldn't hear a thing. The doctor told me that the impact from the crash seemed to have ruptured my eardrums, leaving me deaf. At the time, Victoria was just my girlfriend. Not only did she not leave me, but she also cared for me with even more tenderness and dedication. I was so moved by her devotion that I married her without a second thought. Our story even became a celebrated tale of true love for a time. But I never ever imagined that what I thought was a life-saving grace, what I believed was unwavering devotion, was all just an elaborate, meticulously planned scam. Before I could process it all, Landon eagerly pulled a recording pen from his briefcase. With a click, the pen's red indicator light turned on. "Sincere Dawson, are you willing to transfer all company shares to Victoria Quinn upon your death?" Landon's voice was filled with unconcealed excitement. Victoria immediately understood and gestured in sign language. "Darling, there's a new project that needs your signature for investment approval." Her expression remained gentle, as if she were genuinely seeking my opinion. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Ever since I went deaf, every company decision had been made this way. Victoria would translate Landon's words into sign language, and I would sign and stamp the documents. I had always trusted Victoria completely. Now it was clear the two of them had profited countless times from this deception. No wonder the company's stock plummeted right after going public, with business declining ever since. Thinking of this, I looked at the triumphant smiles on their faces, but I didn't expose them. Instead, I smiled and said aloud, "I agree." Then I expertly signed and stamped the last page of the document. Landon immediately jumped for joy, not even bothering to lower his voice as he mocked me to my face. What a sucker. Once we trick him onto the island and kill him, we'll be set for life hearing this, I sneered inwardly. They had no idea that over the past year, their reckless decisions had already buried the company under a mountain of debt. I had kept it from Victoria because I didn't want her to worry. I'd been stressing over this, trying every possible way to turn things around. But now this was perfect. Since they wanted the company so badly, I'd be more than happy to gift them the hundreds of millions in debt along with it. Since the marriage certificate was fake anyway, I wouldn't be liable for the debt. All I had to do was fake my death to get away, and I could escape this mess and make that wretched pair pay. With that thought, I smiled as I saw the gloating duo off. Then my face turned cold as I dialed a friend's number. "Zach, I need you to make some arrangements for me. I need to stage an accidental death." Chapter 2. An accidental death? What about your wife? Let me talk to her. Before Zach could finish, I cut him off. "Don't worry about it. I can hear you." The other end of the line went silent. A few seconds later, Zach's voice came through, trembling with disbelief. You can hear me?" Zach's voice suddenly became ecstatic. "Holy crap, you're better? For real? You have to tell Victoria, she'll be overjoyed." I just shook my head. "Let's keep this quiet for now." Zach was even more confused. "Why? This is fantastic news." I took a deep breath and told him everything, Victoria and Landon's plan, and the company's current dire financial situation. There was a long silence on the phone, followed by an explosive roar. "That trashy pair has gone too far sincere, don't you worry. Leave it to me, I'll make the arrangements right away." After hanging up, I let out a long sigh, finally getting one weight off my chest. I grabbed my coat, ready to head home for the day. But as I reached the office door, I paused. From outside the office came a chorus of fawning voices. "Wow, Mr. Shaw, is that the new Patek Philippe? I heard it costs over $1 million. Mess Quinn is so good to you. Hey, why are you still calling him assistant? It won't be long before Mr. Shaw is the president, right?" Another voice, a little lower, chimed in. "Shouldn't we keep it down? What if Mr. Dawson finds out?" The employee leading the chatter scoffed dismissively. "He's deaf. It's been a year. He's nothing but a puppet now. Everyone in this company knows Landon Shaw and Mess Quinn are the real decision makers." Yeah, Mr. Shaw. Here's some ginseng I brought back from my hometown. I'll need you to take care of my travel expense reimbursement." Watching the sycophantic display from behind the thin glass door, my gaze turned icy. The employee who spoke first was Leo Croft. I had once considered him the backbone of the company, a technical expert I had personally mentored. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him my apprentice. I remember when he was so poor he couldn't even afford tuition. I made an exception and gave him an internship, teaching him technical theories far beyond any textbook or what was common in the market. As the company grew, I promoted him from a destitute intern all the way to a department head. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to suppress the rage building inside me. I never thought that in just one short year he would have already betrayed me. And it wasn't just him. Almost everyone in the company had accepted the fact that I was just a puppet, and most of them were people I had personally trained and nurtured. I had originally thought that after shedding the mess of this company, I would take them with me to start anew. Now, it seemed there was no need for that. I let out a cold laugh and turned to leave, a pack of ungrateful snakes in the grass. Let them follow Victoria and Landon straight to hell. The next day, Victoria deliberately wore gloves and a mask. In the -3-degree weather, she explained she was afraid of getting a sunburn. Hearing this absurd excuse, I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. It was obviously to avoid attracting attention and leaving any fingerprints. And throughout the entire drive, the lovey-dovey chatter between Victoria and Landon never stopped. I didn't even have to try to listen. Their sickeningly sweet conversation flowed directly into my ears. "Baby, once we get the money, we'll go to the Maldives. buy a villa by the sea, and just sunbathe all day. Landon's voice was so greasy it made my stomach turn. Victoria giggled. Of course, and we'll have a huge wedding. I want everyone to know that I'm Mrs. Shaw, by the way. Have you gotten that old fool's shares transferred to you? Don't worry, baby. It's all taken care of. We're just waiting for his accidental death today. There was a hint of triumph in Victoria's voice. I kept my face impassive as I drove, but my fingernails were digging so deep into the steering wheel they nearly broke the skin. Soon we arrived at the beach they had planned for. The place was remote, no one ever came here. The tide was starting to come in, and the waves crashed against the reefs with a dull, heavy sound. Victoria eagerly pulled me out of the car, saying she wanted to take a few pictures first. I obediently followed her to the shallows, then suddenly shouted, "Vicky, my leg is cramping up." I pretended to struggle, reaching out to her. "Give me a hand, I can't stand." Victoria froze for a second, then took a step back, a vicious look flashing across her face. "It seems even God is on my side." Sincere, go to hell. The next second, a rock smashed hard against my head. Warm liquid trickled down my forehead, my vision blurred, and my body was swept away by the waves. "The body's been washed away. No one will find it, right?" Landon's voice, tinged with worry, came from a distance. "Don't worry, baby. This is an undeveloped, deserted island. The tide will carry him straight out to sea. His body will just be food for the sharks." Victoria's voice was full of glee. Only after their figures completely disappeared did I activate my scuba gear and slowly surface. Zach was already waiting nearby, underwater with first aid equipment and an oxygen tank. "How are you? Are you hurt?" I shook my head, wiped the blood from my face, and let out a cold laugh. "I'm fine, just a small cut." Zach clenched his fists in anger. "Damn them. Even though you're safe, they still stole your company. That was your life's work. It infuriates me to think of them getting rich. Shouldn't we just call the police?" I shook my head, a cold smile playing on my lips. "There's no need for that. Knowing Victoria, she'll be eager to hold an inauguration ceremony. We should prepare a big gift for her." Chapter 3. Soon the news of my death by drowning spread like a virus, sweeping through the entire company. "Did you hear? The president drowned? Is that for real? How could that happen?" They said he went to an island to take photos and got a leg cramp. Whispers and hushed conversations filled the air, with shock written on everyone's face. The stock price reacted accordingly, plummeting like a kite with a snapped string. Citing the need for company stability, Victoria immediately called an emergency shareholders meeting. The document I had signed and the recording Landon had faked became her sharpest weapons. Everything went just as she had planned. She, Victoria Quinn, became the new president of the company. At the inauguration ceremony, everyone was there. My dear apprentice, Leo Croft, was immediately promoted to vice president by Victoria, thanks to his possession of my technical knowledge. He was all smiles, obsequiously showering Victoria with praise. "President Quinn is young and brilliant, a formidable leader who will guide us to new heights of glory." Listening to his insincere flattery, my stomach churned. Finally, Victoria took the stage. She wore a tailored black suit, her face etched with a perfectly calibrated expression of sorrow. The moment she was on stage, she put on a heart-wrenching performance, choking up as she spoke. "My husband, his death, I am utterly heartbroken." She paused, took a deep breath, and continued. "If I could bring him back, I would gladly give up these cold shares and this position as president." Standing in the crowd, watching her phony performance, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The laugh wasn't loud, but it was enough for those around me to notice. All eyes turned to me. I slowly walked up to the stage, a cold smirk on my lips. "Is that so? In that case, why don't you give the shares in the presidency back to me?" The moment Victoria saw me, her face turned deathly white. You're alive?" I let out a light chuckle. "What's the matter? Surprised I didn't die?" She instinctively tried to argue, but then she froze. "Wait, you can hear?" I nodded. Landon immediately jumped out, blustering with false bravado. "So what if you got lucky and survived? So what if you can hear again? You have no proof for any of your claims, and you probably don't even know. The document and recording you signed off on weren't for some project. It was a share transfer agreement. Victoria is the one in charge of this company. Now my dear apprentice, Leo Croft, immediately chimed in to suck up. Exactly, and I've already copied all that technology and secretly filed patents for it. You're completely useless to this company now. I looked at their ugly faces and couldn't help but laugh. Seeing this, Victoria sneered, looking down on me from her superior position. You can still laugh at a time like this? What, do you actually think you can make a comeback? She paused, her tone filled with mock pity. I was going to give you another chance, maybe let you clean the toilets here. But since you're so ungrateful, I guess we'll just forget it. The next moment, she extended a hand with bright red nails and looped her arm through Landon's, the two of them clinging to each other openly. How does it feel to have nothing? A shame I'll never have to experience that. Oh, by the way, next week Shaw and I are having our wedding, followed by a world tour. If you want to hate someone, hate yourself for being so stupid. To actually believe in that crap called love, she laughed, her body shaking with mirth, as if she could already see her blissful future. I watched her gloating, small-minded display and simply offered a calm smile. Is that so? I hope you'll still be able to smile in a few moments. Hearing this, Victoria's brow furrowed slightly. What do you mean? Before she could press further, a group of men suddenly burst into her inauguration ceremony. You're the president of this company, right? At that moment, Victoria was still basking in her impending happiness, assuming they were business associates coming to celebrate. She flicked her hair back and smiled even more proudly. Of course, if you're here to discuss a partnership. Before she could finish, the man in the lead suddenly slapped her hard across the face. Smack! The crisp sound echoed through the silent hall. Before anyone could react, the man pulled a thick stack of stamped invoices from his coat and threw them in Victoria's face. You piece of trash, you have the money for a spectacle like this, but you've been dragging your feet on paying your debts? If you don't settle this $100 million payment today, I'm going to settle you Chapter 4. The entire room erupted in chaos. Victoria stared at the documents in shock, asking frantically, Sir, there must be some kind of mistake. What $100 million payment? You must have the wrong person. Her voice trembled, her eyes filled with fear. The man, enraged, slapped her again. Smack! This slap was harder than the last, and the corner of Victoria's mouth started to bleed. Fine, play dumb. You're not going to own up to it, are you? He grabbed a fistful of Victoria's hair, forcing her head up. Take a good look. Is that your company's seal on these papers or not? Victoria took the documents with trembling hands. When she saw them clearly, her face instantly turned ashen. This is the company's seal. The next moment, as if realizing something, she shot her head up and glared at me with venom in her eyes. You knew all along, didn't you? Why didn't you say anything? Were you deliberately setting a trap for me? Watching her fall apart, I felt not a shred of pity, only endless satisfaction. This is great, I thought, smiling to myself. I've been waiting for this moment. But on the surface, I put on an innocent act. Blinking my eyes, I looked completely bewildered. Sir, I was deaf until recently. I pointed to my ears, then to Victoria and Landon. You heard them yourself just now. I was just a puppet. I didn't know anything. They were the ones behind all of this. I wore a look of utter grievance, as if I had been terribly wronged. Victoria and Landon were stunned. They never imagined my past deafness would become my current shield. They had truly shot themselves in the foot. Landon's face was ashen. He wanted to argue but found himself speechless. After all, to seize control, he had been the one to announce to the world that I was in poor health, and that Victoria was handling all company affairs as my proxy. Now that lie had become the sharpest knife, stabbing them both right in the back. Victoria was trembling with rage. She never thought I would turn on them like this. You, she pointed at me, unable to form a complete sentence. The debt collectors saw this and became even more convinced that Victoria was just stalling. He waved his hand and roared at his men. Surround them. A group of burly men immediately moved, blocking all the exits. Now Victoria was truly panicking. She had thought that becoming president meant she would have control over everything. She never expected to be plunged into an even bigger crisis before she could even taste victory. She looked at me in terror, her eyes filled with despair. Why would you do this? Her voice quivered as she tried to guilt-trip me. We were married. We've known each other for 10 years. Why would you pull a stunt like this? I looked at her hypocritical face and sneered. Married? She had the nerve to say that I recalled our once happy times, a flicker of sadness crossing my eyes before my voice turned cold. In the beginning, when we were in school, our relationship was good. But you changed after I started my own business and earned my first real money. You became more and more vain, materialistic, and unfamiliar. I tolerated it for the sake of our history. I even believed you had saved me, that you would never leave my side. In the end, it was all a lie. You have no right to say any of this to me. My words, like a sharp sword, pierced through Victoria's facade. Her face was pale, her lips trembled, but she couldn't offer a single word in her defense. The people around us began to murmur, their suspicions turning on Victoria. Landon was panicking too. He thought that by latching onto Victoria, he would be on the fast track to success. He never imagined her support would crumble before he even got a firm grip. He glared at me viciously, his voice dripping with resentment. Sincere, you're so childish you never think about the big picture, and have you forgotten? You and Victoria aren't divorced yet, her debts are your debts too. At his words, I laughed, louder this time. Victoria and Landon just stared, stunned. They couldn't understand what was so funny when I was about to be crushed by debt. After a moment, I pulled out our marriage certificate, my eyes full of mockery. Victoria, did you forget? Our marriage certificate is a fake Chapter 5. At my words, Victoria froze as if struck by lightning. Her mouth hung slightly open, but no sound came out. She pointed at me, her finger trembling so violently she looked like a late-stage Parkinson's patient. You. How did you know? Could it be? You've had your hearing back for a while? Her voice shot up, shrill and piercing, like nails on a chalkboard, making my skin crawl. I chuckled inwardly but kept my face impassive, a mask of calm indifference. That's none of your concern. You should probably focus on figuring out how to solve the company's debt problem. Seeing that the tables had completely turned, my apprentice, Leo Croft, the very same one who used to call me Master more sweetly than anyone, his eyes darted around like beads on an abacus. His expression changed faster than a Sichuan opera mask. He dropped to his knees in front of me with a thud, his face a mess of tears and snot, wailing as if his parents had just died. Master, I was wrong, he sobbed, his voice choked with emotion, as if he were the victim of some great injustice. They threatened me. I've always respected you. The only reason I agreed to help them was to infiltrate their ranks and get revenge for you, Master. His performance was a masterclass in crocodile tears, worthy of an Oscar. Watching him, I couldn't help but sneer. With acting skills like that, it was a shame he wasn't in Hollywood. If I hadn't personally heard him in the office, mocking me as a mere puppet, I would have found it hard to believe the apprentice I had personally nurtured could be so rotten. A person's heart is truly harder to fathom than a needle at the bottom of the sea. Nearby, Victoria and Landon were completely dumbfounded. They stood there like two plucked chickens, frozen to the spot. How dare you switch sides? Landon pointed at Leo, trembling with rage, unable to speak. He never imagined that his meticulous plan would not only be ruined by my resurrection, but that his own pawn would now turn against him. However, I had no intention of forgiving Leo. I sighed and took a recording pen from my pocket. With a soft click, the play button lit up. The next moment, Leo's voice filled the room. That old deaf one is just a puppet. He doesn't know anything. Once Ms. Quinn and Mr. Shaw are in charge, the good times will really start for us. As the recording played on, Leo's face grew paler and paler. He was panicking, truly panicking. His eyes darted around, unable to meet mine. "Mr. Dawson, I can explain," he stammered, like a child caught doing something wrong. But I just shook my head. "I believe I told you once that a person has to take responsibility for their choices. What goes around, comes around." Leo was silent for a long moment, as if thinking, or perhaps despairing. Suddenly, he burst into a crazed laugh, a shrill sound that sent shivers down the spine. "So what? So what if there's debt? Don't forget, you're nothing now. With a few clicks, I can have you blacklisted, then we'll see who goes down first." His eyes were savage, like a cornered animal.
Victoria, snapping out of her stupor, seemed to grab onto this as a lifeline.
She barked, "That's right, Sincere as president. All I have to do is say the word, and you'll be blacklisted industry-wide instead. Of mutually assured destruction, we should be thinking about how to solve this debt problem together." Her tone was forceful, as if she still held all the cards. But I simply reached into my suit pocket, pulled out a business card, and held it in front of her. "I've already joined Apex Group as their new vice president, so you don't need to worry about me." Chapter 6. Victoria took the business card, and the expression on her face instantly froze. She looked as if she had swallowed a fly, disgusted and humiliated. She stared at the words on the card, completely stunned. Apex Group. They were the undisputed leader in the industry, a company she had only dreamed of partnering with. And now her ex-husband was the vice president of Apex Group. The air in the room grew thick and still. The surrounding shareholders stared, their eyes wide and their mouths agape, large enough to fit an egg. Apex Group? One shareholder stammered, reading the name on the card. Another rubbed his eyes in disbelief, as if seeing a ghost. Sincere Dawson is their VP? Their voices trembled with shock and confusion. I was secretly thrilled, but on the surface I maintained a faint, calm smile. The effect was even better than I had imagined. Victoria looked like she'd been struck by lightning. She mechanically held the card, her gaze fixed and vacant. Apex Group was the partner of her dreams, and now her ex-husband was their vice president. For her, this was a bolt from the blue. How could you, she stammered, unable to believe it. I chuckled lightly and began to explain. In truth, Apex Group had been trying to acquire my company for a long time. They admired my technology and my vision. They had even made a very generous offer. But I had always refused. I valued my freedom and didn't want to be tied down. It was only after the company's finances were wrecked by those two parasites, Victoria and Landon, that the money chain broke. That was when I had no choice but to join Apex Group. Fortunately, they still admired my drive. Not only did they make me a vice president on the spot, but they also gave me millions in stock options. For me, this was a new beginning. After I finished, Victoria's face grew even uglier. She glared at me, grinding her teeth, the hatred in her eyes practically boiling over. "So you already had your next move lined up. No wonder you were so ruthless." Her voice was shrill and piercing, like a knife stabbing at me. I sneered inwardly. "Compared to what you did to me, what is this?" At that moment, the debt collector impatiently cut her off. "Cut the crap, pay up." His coarse voice snapped Victoria out of her rage. She put on a pitiful, tear-streaked face. "I don't have any money." The debt collector just sneered. "You're the president of a public company. Who's going to believe you don't have money?" They closed in on Victoria, their eyes menacing, as if they were about to eat her alive. Victoria stumbled backward, pale with fear. What are you trying to do?" The men didn't speak, they just kept advancing. Just as they were about to grab her, Victoria finally broke. I have money, I'll pay right now." She fumbled in her purse, pulled out a bank card, and handed it to them. The debt collector took the card and swiped it. "This is only a few $100,000. Are you messing with us?" Their tone grew harsher, the anger in their eyes flaring. Victoria trembled, tears streaming down her face. That's really all there is. The rest was stolen by Sincere." Chapter 7. She pointed at me, wailing as if I were a despicable criminal. I was stunned. This woman truly wouldn't give up until she was faced with utter ruin. Even now, she was still trying to frame me. I took a deep breath, forcing down the rage building inside me. "Victoria, have you no shame? When did I ever steal your money?" My voice was ice cold, devoid of any emotion. Victoria cried even harder, as if she were the victim of a great injustice. "It was you. It was you. You stole my money. Give me back my money." I frowned. "The card has been in your possession. What could I have possibly stolen?" Victoria cried, her voice hoarse and her face streaked with tears. "The security phone number on the account is mine, and only the two of us knew the password if you didn't secretly drain my account. How could there be no money left in it?" she screamed, looking for all the world like a deeply wronged woman. I glanced over at Landon Shaw. As expected, he didn't disappoint. He immediately jumped in, pointing at me with righteous indignation. "Sincere, you are a truly heartless man. And after Vicky trusted you so much, how could you steal her money behind her back?" He shook his head in feigned despair, as if I were the most heinous of criminals. I sneered to myself. With acting like that, it was a waste he wasn't an actor. In an instant, the surrounding shareholders began whispering among themselves, their gazes turning suspicious as they looked at me. The debt collectors glared at me with even more hostility, as if they were ready to tear me apart. I took a deep breath, suppressed my anger, and let a cold smile form on my lips. "Is that so? It's simple enough to find out the truth. Why don't we just check the bank statements? We'll see exactly where the money went. It will all be crystal clear." Hearing this, Victoria's face instantly went pale, her eyes darting around in a clear panic. You're just stalling for time," she stammered, her voice trembling. "You're probably planning to use checking the statements as an excuse to secretly call the police." I laughed to myself. The police? Why would I call them? I wanted nothing more than to blow this whole thing wide open so everyone could see their true colors. But, as the saying goes, the one who cries loudest often gets the most sympathy. For a moment, even the debt collectors began to doubt me. "Cut the crap, I don't care who it was, just get the money out now or I'll chop off your hands." He raised a fist the size of a melon and waved it in front of my face. But I just gave a contemptuous smile, my eyes filled with disdain. "It's just the bank statements. Here, you can have them." Chapter 8. I took my phone out of my pocket, opened the banking app, pulled up the transaction history, and handed it to the lead debt collector. My movements were calm and unhurried, as if everything was under my control. The man took the phone and carefully examined the records. His expression slowly grew serious, his eyes filling with confusion. The transaction history clearly showed that most of the money from the card had been used for company operations, with another portion transferred directly to Victoria's personal account. There was no trace of me stealing anything. The other shareholders crowded around, looking at the records. Their expressions shifted from suspicion to shock, and then to anger. The looks they gave Victoria and Landon were filled with contempt and disgust. Victoria and Landon's faces were ashen, white as sheets of paper. How do you have—" I let out a cold laugh. It was always my card. I had anticipated she would try to pull a stunt like this. After all, a cornered dog will bite. So, after my fake death, the first thing I did was go to the bank and pull all the transaction records. I printed out all the evidence, just in case. And sure enough, it came in handy. Seeing the bank statements, the debt collectors realized they had been played. Burning with rage, one of them grabbed Victoria by the throat. "Where's the money?" A burly man with a scarred face roared, spittle flying onto Victoria's face. Victoria's face turned crimson. She struggled desperately but couldn't break free. "Cough, cough. I don't have it." She managed to choke out a few words, her eyes filled with terror. I watched coldly, feeling not a shred of sympathy. She had brought all of this upon herself. I turned and walked away, not giving them another glance. I had more important things to do. Soon the news of Victoria's $100 million debt spread throughout the industry. Companies that had been interested in partnering with her quickly terminated their agreements. The company came to a complete standstill. With no distribution channels, their manufactured goods piled up in warehouses, unable to be sold. The employees who had once sided with Victoria and Landon now showed up at their homes, demanding answers. When the wall falls, everyone gives it a push. There is no better illustration of the coldness of the world. Pushed to the brink, Victoria came crawling back to me. She wore a different face now, as gentle as a kitten. "Sincere, I bought you a gift." She handed me a beautifully wrapped box. I took it and opened it. Inside was a men's watch. I recognized it instantly. It was the one she had previously given to Landon. Ever since I lost my hearing, my eyesight and powers of observation had sharpened considerably. Even the smallest details didn't escape my notice. I sneered and tossed the box directly into the trash can. "If you have something to say, say it." My tone was ice cold, devoid of any emotion. Victoria's expression soured, but she forced a smile. "Sincere, could you talk to Apex Group for me? Ask them to act as a guarantor, to maintain our partnerships. I can give up the presidency and the shares. We can split it 70-30. No, 90-10 is fine too, as long as I can find a way to pay back the debt." Her tone was practically begging, but I ignored her. She had no choice but to try again, speaking cautiously. "Do you want Landon to apologize before you'll forgive me?" Before I could even respond, she forcibly dragged Landon out. Landon stood with his head down, reluctantly apologizing to me. "I'm sorry, okay?" His tone was stiff, completely insincere. I hadn't even said a word, but Victoria was already cooing at him. "Shaw, I know you've been wronged. Once we get the guarantee from Apex Group and the company is back on its feet, I promise I'll make it up to you." Watching them already planning their future, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. "You can apologize all you want, but when did I ever say I was going to help you?" Chapter 9. Hearing my words, Victoria frowned, looking at me with complete confusion. "Sincere, what more do you want?" Her eyes were red, as if she were the victim of a great injustice. "Landon and I have both been punished, and we've apologized. Are you still not satisfied?" She sniffled, tears welling up in her eyes. Looking at her hypocritical act, I only felt immense disgust. When I loved her, I felt she had suffered a great deal for me, so I was always tolerant. Now? I couldn't even be bothered to speak, just looked at her as if she were a clown. But my silence seemed to make her feel even more wronged. "You've changed so much this past year. You were never so petty before, you weren't like this." I rolled my eyes internally. "Petty? She made me deaf, faked my death and plunged my company into massive debt, and now she had the gall to call me petty? That was the most ridiculous joke I'd ever heard." I opened my mouth, but found that any words would be pale and powerless. I didn't want to waste another breath on her. Seeing me like this, Victoria bit her lip, as if she had made a great resolution. As long as you're willing to save the company, I can fire Shaw and never see him again." As she spoke, she shot a quick glance at Landon. Landon immediately flew into a panic. "Vicky, how could you abandon me?" He shot to his feet, a look of disbelief on his face, his eyes instantly turning red. Victoria shot him a look back, a mix of warning and reassurance. Landon froze for a second, then, as if understanding something, he lowered his head, squeezed out a few fake tears, and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I saw right through their clumsy act. They thought I didn't know, but their every move was within my grasp. Victoria, thinking her performance was flawless, smiled triumphantly and wrapped her arms around mine, trying to appeal to my emotions. "Sincere, you see? I broke up with him for you. From now on, my heart will only belong to you." But I just sneered and violently shook her hand off. "This love you speak of, does it also include deliberately causing a car crash and piercing my eardrums?" Chapter 10. My words struck Victoria like a bolt of lightning. Her face went deathly pale, the smile freezing on her lips. Her eyes widened, her lips trembled, but she couldn't utter a single word. How did you know? I couldn't help but sneer. So you admit it. Only then did Victoria realize her slip of the tongue, and she frantically tried to explain. No, that's not it, Sincere, listen to me. It was an accident, it really was an accident, she was babbling, her eyes darting around in a panic. Her face was flushed red, like a ripe tomato, but I just smiled coldly, pulled a document from my folder and tossed it in front of her. With a sharp smack, the file landed on the polished marble table. It was the doctor's official assessment report. It clearly stated that my ruptured eardrums were not caused by the impact of an explosion. They were punctured by a sharp, man-made object. Victoria was completely dumbfounded. She collapsed to the floor, a heap of despair. The color drained from her face, leaving it as white as a sheet of paper. Sincere, I was wrong. I was possessed back then. I promise I'll be a good wife from now on. I'll take care of you. Please don't have me arrested, please. She reached out to grab the hem of my pants, but I ruthlessly kicked her hand away. Save it for the judge. The next moment I turned and left without a trace of hesitation. In the end, this farce finally came to its bleak conclusion. The story of my dear apprentice, Leo Croft, and his repeated betrayals spread throughout the industry. He was blacklisted by every company, his future utterly destroyed. The once promising young talent was now a pariah, scorned by all. As for Victoria, with ample evidence of her murder attempt, she was arrested for attempted murder. And because of her massive debts, not only was her company gone, but her home was also seized by the court, and all her valuable possessions were taken. Even her own parents disowned her, refusing to have anything to do with her ever again. Worse still, because she still couldn't pay off her debts, the collectors arranged for people on the inside to torment her. They even forced Victoria to sign an indenture contract, ensuring she would continue to work for them to pay off her debt after her release. And her little assistant, Landon Shaw, I heard he was taken to a labor camp in Southeast Asia to work off his debt, living a life worse than death. As for me, relying on my years of experience and technical expertise, I seized a new market opportunity and launched a new line of business. I was promoted by headquarters to be the head of the Asia-Pacific region, with a bright future ahead of me. Thinking of this, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, a glass of champagne in my hand, looking out over the entire city. My heart was calm, without a single ripple. With this, everything was over. From now on, it was a new life. The end,